always strange, right? When you sort of film these things where you have to kind of put yourself at the precipice of death. It's never a comfortable place to start with. But at the same time, you're always sort of blown away by how kind of cool they make it look, and like the way that they have the whole rig, and everybody's there making sure everything is as safe as possible. But yeah, it's a great scene. It's sort of a great sort of red herring to kind of stick in there. Wanting to see a face that she knows, and wanting to see some, to have some kind of support in this really terrifying moment. And who does she find but Mr. Christie? It's not exactly the person she was hoping for. Look at Mark Lewis Jones is just one of these incredible actors. He is so soulful, and when you're going to go into a scene with him that he's going to just give you all of the things that you need and more, and surprise you and all of those things. So, it's nice that you don't, you do your own prep, and you come prepared to set, but then you let it just flow organically. And, I think it's that relationship is so interesting. That dynamic they have together is so interesting. When Claire and Tom first meet, she sort of dismisses him as this sort of pious bigot, and slowly over the last season and now, he just, all these different layers sort of be revealed of who he is and the pain that he experienced, and then you understand why he is the way he is. And so to see this depth of emotion that he has, and the loss that he experienced, and then the love that he has for Claire, it's so beautiful. I loved all of that stuff. I loved the just that relationship, and how we got to unpick it, and how it grows on the show. It was a real treat. She knows that he didn't kill Malva. She knows there's something else. The loss of Malva was that was such a traumatic thing for Claire to have to, go through, as much as everybody else. There's the lying, and she knew that, Jamie didn't do anything, but then it's when you can't, the tragedy of it all, I think is just something she couldn't quite accept. And then to see that it continues, and that, there's going to be another death because of something, and she doesn't quite know what it is either. So yeah, really, really sad, but also beautiful stuff in a weird way. Yes, we see him again. There is a continuation of this story, and it may have another twist or turn. You gotta have a romantic kiss on a boat, don't you? I think these reunions, you have to make them feel like they are what they are, which is I think this couple, whenever they are torn apart, whenever they are separated, it's like they lose a limb, and whenever they come back together again, it's like their full life force returns to them. And that's what it feels like for them. It's like they don't function fully without each other. Some may call it codependent, or a big love story, but they sort of stuck him on a dinghy, but I think it was just a couple of like water barrels tied together. It was a bit precarious. And those costume boots he wears, I don't think there's a lot of grip in them. So we were docked at a port in Scotland, but it's still the sea. There's still slight waves going on, and I think he might have had a little bit of a flop sweat going on, trying to get over that the side of that boat. But yeah, that feels like such a long time ago. It's so it is. It's almost a year and a half ago that we filmed that, but yeah, it's got that romance to it. It really does. I don't know. I think that maybe that's the sort of. I think once he concludes that part of the story, that there is maybe something that he can put to rest. There's I think, a satisfaction perhaps in getting revenge or finishing that part of that story. Very quickly then we're dealing with the Revolutionary War, and I think for Jamie that is, that brings up an awful lot of complications. Obviously, he has previously stood on the opposite side of the battlefield to someone he loved dearly, being Murtagh. And he swore then that he would never fight for the British again. So he has picked his side, and what that might mean and who he might meet on the battlefield, that becomes a huge part of our storyline, and how that weighs on him. So for Claire, there is a real sense this season that last season she kind of fell apart and her psyche fell apart, and there was a real breakdown of how she functions. But I think this season, in many ways, there's an awful lot of trauma and things happening, but in a weird way, she's kind of more mentally capable of coping with it. And so I think she's there as a support to Jamie quite often this season, when he's dealing with some of the stuff that's really emotionally taxing for him. Sophie has always been super talented. It's just so nice to see all of our younger actors who came in. They've just blossomed on this show, and Soph has so many amazing storylines this season especially, and I was super fortunate. I got to also direct her in second unit this season, and it's just such a privilege to work with her. Like her talent is huge. She brings such depth and emotion to her role as Brianna, and this season, I think she really knocks it out of the park. But I think you just sort of stand back and let them, I think for me, what I try to do as a director is just help fine-tune things. It's always been the way that I've appreciated being directed myself. It's like, if you see someone is connected to the material and understands what they're doing, then you let them just get on with the job, and you're there as a help if they ever need it. I was so fortunate, the scene that I got to do with her, she was just amazing in it, and it is, she had, this was one of the joke, we had some stomach grumbling issues, but other than that, it was just beautiful. She's a beautiful actress, and it was just really lovely to be able to sit on the other side of the camera and watch her give you everything and more. So it's amazing to me just how close to the battles these field hospitals were. And there's always been a sense of the women sending the men off to battle, but there were women always going along with them and sort of working in these field hospitals. Claire always has to deal with this thing of, she's a surgeon, but she's never really recognized as one. There's a lot of military surgeons there, and we sort of we have to deal with that sort of thing as well. But it was just incredible. I just think the scope and the scale of these battles, and the scale of the field hospitals that they had, and everything that was going on with that, it was just really, it was really cool. I think she functions in a very high way in those circumstances. Even though it's precarious and there's a lot of fear and also worry, it's also where her skills are most useful, and she knows what to do. So she functions well then.